was a day spectators will remember for quite a while, as fenders touched and paint was traded in great Sandown shootout. Round 2 of the Shell Touring Car Nationals was very much the John Bowe show, as the hard-charging Tasmanian roared to successive wins after taking provisional pole in the swift Sierra. Consistency also paid off the Nissan duo Mark Scaife and Jim Richards, who still top the series leaderboard. Seven Sport welcomes you to Symmons Plains, Tasmania, battleground for today's third round of the Shell Australian Touring Car title. Once again, the Superbikes are here to weave their own brand of magic. Scott Doohan leads the Shell Oil Series from resident rev head Mal Campbell, but Kawasaki's Matt Mladen remains the boy to beat. That's all to come in our 2-hour special of handlebars and touring cars from Symmons Plains. Proudly brought to you by Shell. Good afternoon, Australia. I'm Mike Raymond. Welcome to Symmons Plains and round 3 of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship, and also round 2 of the Shell Oil Series for Superbikes. Well, as we said earlier, Mark Scaife and Jim Richards topped the leaderboard in their Nissan GTRs. So much of the last couple of days here at Symmons Plains has been taken up, and the headlines dominated by Ford Sierras. And Alan Moffat, I guess that brings a smile to your face.
Yes, it does, Mike. There's 5 Sierras in the top 6 this morning. The lone GTR this time is the GIO car. And for some strange reason, Freddie Gibson's Winfield's cars were just...
Are they foxing? That's what everyone's asking.
Well, I hope they're not foxing. I hope they're saving their tires, because that can only be the only explanation available.
Well, when we left Symmons Plains last night, John Bowe had pole position. Of course, the Peter Jackson Dash opens proceedings on a Sunday morning, and unfortunately, John Bowe pulled position number 6. Here we are with the start. Glenn Seaton pulled number 1 out of the bag, and he led early from Dick Johnson. Then we saw Johnson streak around the outside, having a little contact, a little bodywork hanging off the car there, but he was still able to outdistance himself. It was a fantastic drive from Dick Johnson and gave him the opportunity, of course, to sit on pole position today. But if I guess one driver is disappointed, it's John Bowe, who has been the fastest man in 3 touring car rounds, but will start not off pole today. And with John, it's Andy Raymond.
Well, John Bowe, quickest again in pre-qualifying, but you're not starting off position number 1.
Well, that's the rules for everybody. If you're in the top 6, you draw for position, and for my normal run of luck, I drew 6, but I've just managed to get back up to 3rd, so it's a 50% step, isn't it?
And pole position, in fact, teammate Dick Johnson, you must be very happy with that, Dick.
Well, certainly after the start, because I had my left foot on the brake and it was in second gear, and then the thing all of a sudden got all its horsepower at once, and I thought it was going to do a right turn into the fence there for a minute, but we sort of gathered it up, and I got a bit of a hit up the backside down the other end there, which sort of really didn't upset us that much. But
so Dick Johnson on pole position, and John Bowe, the man that's been fastest for 3 rounds, starts out of the second row. We've got the cars coming out onto the track now, and to take a look at the grid, it's good afternoon to Mark Osler.
Thanks, Mike. Dick Johnson on pole position after his win in the 3-lap dash. Glenn Seaton alongside him on the front row. Out of position 3, 18, John Bowe on the Shell Sierra. From 4, Mark Gibbs in the GIO Nissan. Out of position 5, Wayne Park in the second Peter Jackson Sierra. Out of position 6, number 8, Colin Bond, but Bondy hasn't made it to the grid yet. We'll see if he starts. Position 7, Peter Brock. And position 8, Mark Scaife in the first of the Winfield Nissans. Position 9, Neil Crompton in the Mobil 1 Commodore. And rounding out the 10, Tony Longhurst in the little BMW M3.
And a fantastic crowd here today at Symmons Plains, Tasmania. Probably a record for the circuit for touring cars since they switched to Group A back in 1985. We have all the ingredients of a fabulous first heat here today. Conditions are ideal. The Sierra's off the front row. Watch Johnson and Glenn Seaton. Off the start. Has Seaton won it? He sure has. He gets away quickly, but John Bowe in the number 18 car picks up a gear and comes up smartly as they come up to the first corner. And Mark Gibbs on the outside, that is not the line to the first turn. He's going to get caught very wide here, but he goes in deep, and he'll get plenty of acceleration off that 4-wheel drive car as he comes off the bend. You'll see that on our next camera shot as John Bowe tries to get to the outside of Dick Johnson. He's a little quicker than Gibbs coming down the back straight, but it's Glenn Seaton who will lead them down through the curve. Johnson right on his tail, then comes John Bowe, and they've dropped off the Nissan as they come down to the left-hander at Coca-Cola.
Gee, I tell you, the Shell Sierras have been looking very strong this year with the amount of power they're getting out of these engines. Very strong at Sandown, the power circuit, very strong here again. But Glenn Seaton's got the whole shot on this first lap. The Peter Jackson car looking so strong last year. Glenn had a bit of engine trouble in practice, but he leads them round on this first lap. It's Sierras everywhere as we take Dunlop race cam out of the inside of Johnson's car, leading his teammate Bow as they come under the Dunlop bridge, flying past our commentary position, and under brakes for the very hard hairpin.
Now, Johnson has to be very careful he doesn't get too far to the outside unless he's opening it up for Bow on the inside. But he sits here, cuts the corner, comes out, about ideal. And these two are having a fabulous race, and John Bow, don't take him out of calculations because he's moved right up on the bumper of Dick Johnson. At this moment, I think it would bring a smile to Glenn Seaton's face because after a wretched run so far, Alan Moffat, he looks pretty sharp.
Yes, he does, Mike. He's done a lot of testing here prior to the run this weekend, and he's got his little Peter Jackson Sierra looking quite good. I would say that Dick's got his handle at the moment. He's certainly within striking distance at any time. He's right in the slipstream if he wants to take advantage and can take advantage on the straight. I think everybody's just being a little bit tippy-toey here at the moment. They've seen over the last two heats, the last two races, what can happen in the second heat. So we're, for my guess, we're looking at just a little bit more conservative driving here.
There's the front-running group. I notice one of the Winfield Nissan cars certainly up within the top 6 as Glenn Seaton. The PJ Sierra, the exit to the hairpin, it looks pretty good, gets away out of that turn. Bow sits in behind team leader Dick Johnson as they come through this wide sweeper. It's rather deceiving on television, but the cars are very, very quick indeed. There's Mark Gibbs running back in the 4th spot, and I think that will probably be Peter Brock up into 5th, and then the first of the Winfield Nissans up into 6th spot. They have really done nothing in practice, but watch them in the second heat later today. Only a couple of laps yesterday. They're really just enough to scuff in the tyres, get a time, and they'll get serious when the second heat comes round this afternoon.
I'll tell you the big disappointment, the guy missing out of this battle at the front is Colin Bond. The guy was really surprising how much speed he's got out of the car. He was fastest here on Friday and very quick here yesterday. Got himself onto the front row in qualifying, but in the run this morning he snapped a conrod. They've had to do an engine change, and Colin didn't appear on the grid this morning, so that's a great disappointment for Colin Bond and the Caltex team.
Well, he'll no doubt be able to start in the second heat, which takes place a little bit later. Very hard to change an engine in just a little over an hour.
Of course, Johnson was faced with that dilemma, the Bow car last week at Sandown in the Peter Jackson dash early in the morning. He lost one completely, detonated one, and they got it ready for the first heat. They must have been the really trick engine too, because JB was able to run away from them last weekend at Sandown. Today, of course, at Symmons Plains, new set of circumstances and adversity besetting Glenn Seaton over the past couple of days, but it's all playing into his hands now as he leads the charge beneath the Dunlop Bridge. The order unchanged. Glenn Seaton out by 2 car lengths over Johnson, 2 back then to John Bow, and then 10 back to Mark Gibbs, who has Peter Brock right on his tail. And then in car number 2, it is Mark Scaife.
Here comes Brock down the outside of Gibbs as they head into the hairpin. And the Commodore's having quite a competitive run here, considering they haven't had a lot of testing time. Brock run down the outside, not the place to be. Gibbs gets the acceleration of the 4-wheel drive Nissan out of there a little bit better. But watch the power advantage of the Commodore. Up about 50 horsepower on the GTR and 100 kilograms lighter. This is where power to weight ratios come into play. Here's Scaife running in 6th position. His teammate Richards is still round the back of the field. Now, that's a real change from last year. 12 months can make a lot of difference in motor racing. Last year, the 2 Nissan GTRs lapped the field.
Alan, that pass by Brock was good. It was down the outside, and he got the power on at the same time as Gibbs.
I was surprised to see him take the outside line into the hairpin. That's quite a delicate corner, and he did it very nicely. Stayed on the inside, didn't get bluffed out on the short run out of the hairpin, and by the time they got to the right-hander in the middle of that straight, as you said earlier, is quite tight, and now holding Gibbs off successfully.
This is getting fairly interesting back in the pack as we follow this dice between Peter Brock and the Mobil 1 Commodore. Mark Scaife coming up on the outside of Gibbs. Watch the acceleration of these cars, these 4-wheel drives. They really do get it down on the ground, and you can see Scaife already just trying to angle across to sit in the draft of Brock as they go through the right-hand kick. And he's got him perfectly positioned. Mark on the wrong line there.
Meanwhile, the gap between the leading Fords in this battle is almost out to 5 seconds, so the Sierras really do have a straight line advantage around here.
a tricky circuit, Alan. You've been coming here for years. It doesn't have too much character, but it's quite fast.
Well, it is fast, and contrary to your comment, Mike, I always found it quite intriguing. The few corners that are there, this one in particular, left-hander in front of the pits, is very deadly, making it look easy here today on camera. Another little wiggle to the right-hander here, and as we see Scaife trying to give Brocky a bit of a run, but you're going to have to get up earlier than that to outfox Brock into a corner like this. Maybe on the straight he'll be able to take advantage of the draft. That Commodore fairly big car to tuck in behind. They don't really seem to be slingshotting as strongly off the corners as they used to. Michael, one might believe that there is something in the handicapping.
Well, of course, everyone's making it fairly political. I think the Holden boys would like to do away with the 7,500 RPM limiter. We go inside, thanks to Dunlop, to Dick Johnson's car, and Alan Moffat, as he just pointed out, has been coming here for a number of years. Alan, like to talk us around the circuit, the gears, and...
Well, after last weekend when I was in the wrong gear, our mate Dick didn't like what I was calling there, but we're back through the pit straight, up, down, past the start-finish line, accelerate here at a good rate of knots, down, I would think, to the very bottom gear for this left-hand hairpin. He'll reef the wheel. That's about as much as you'll ever see a driver pulling it. Very nicely handled. You notice he doesn't take his hands off the wheels. If we could get everyone driving on the road that way, there'd be a lot less accidents. Quick nip through. Now this doesn't look like much, but he's hanging on to it. You can see just coaxing it a little bit. Flat out of course. Down to a left-hander under brakes. Coaxing it a little bit, and just to the very outside of the real estate there. He's up quickly through the next gear. A bit bouncy through here. We just can't see out his window. But, and again, this little tight right and then left-hander in front of this, probably one of the most difficult corners. You can see Dick is saving his tires here. He remembered at Sandown that he was perhaps a little bit too exuberant, I beg your pardon.
Well, we've got problems for the Peter Jackson team already in the pits with one of their cars.
That's Wayne Park's car.
Yes, Wayne's been doing a good job. He's the 2IC to Glenn Seaton in the team. And some good qualifying performances from young Wayne, but unfortunately the results aren't there at the moment. As we go back to the leader, Glenn Seaton, one in the pits, one out front of the pack. Johnson still running in the second spot, and JB, his team partner, runs there in third. They look fairly comfortable at this stage, and I would have thought maybe the Nissans, after some problems yesterday or conserving rubber, may have been up, but you really can't just hang around for one heat only, the second heat.
And you can't give away too much in qualifying, Michael. If you start, you want to start at the front, and here we get an example of the three cars that were right on the 1, 2, 3 on the grid are showing that look at the gap between them. It's daylight between them and Peter Brock coming through now with Scaife still on his tail.
The other good thing about this gap, and that is Brock to Mark Scaife, and we'll get it on the other shot as they go down the back part of the course, and you'll notice the BMW is already up behind Mark Gibbs. Now that means Tony Longhurst has been able to get away from Jim Richards. Now if you can explain that to me, Richards is to position number 9.
Yeah, Jim seems to be struggling down the back of the grid, but there's certainly no problems here for Brock, holding off the number 2 Nissan of Mark Scaife. There we are inside Jimmy Richards' car, running back in position 9, as Michael said. Neil Crompton just in front of him in the second of the Mobile Commodores. And this is quite an interesting equation here. Richards running this far back in the field. We've seen them not doing very many qualifying laps when they come out. Yesterday, I think it was like a warm-up lap, a couple of maybe 2 quick laps, and they were back into the pits, and that's the last we saw of the Nissans. A lot of people are saying that's a way to conserve tyres and possibly avoid the 3-lap dash in the morning. But Mark Scaife assured me yesterday that they are absolutely driving these things flat out in qualifying.
Well, I would say just listening to that engine, they're certainly not straining either engine or machine or driver at this stage. It doesn't sound like the Jim Richards that we should know. That car's not revving at all. I don't know what they're frightened of, but maybe we're being unkind with that criticism, but certainly there's no roar from that 6-cylinder engine.
Well, here's the race leader, Glenn Seaton, the Peter Jackson Sierra, has promised a lot this season, and he's delivering it here today. He leads heat number 1 of the Shell Touring Car Championship. Dick Johnson runs in second in car number 17. John Bowe, his teammate, is third. Then it's Peter Brock in 05, the Mobil 1 Commodore, and rounding out the 5, Mark Scaife in the Winfield Nissan GTR. Back here at Symmons Plains, the dice for second continues as they go down to the left-hander at Coca-Cola Corner. And John Bowe in car number 18 getting to the outside of team leader Dick Johnson. That moves him up into second. Johnson back to third now. Meanwhile, Glenn Seaton gets away from the pack in car number 30, the Peter Jackson entry.
This is a pretty absorbing team battle between the Shell Sierras and the Peter Jackson car. Glenn Seaton's car, his father Bowe builds the engines for them, and they also run on Bridgestone tyres, whereas the two Shell Sierras are running on Dunlop rubber. Dunlop using a new experimental tyre they've called the M3, which apparently is a big improvement on the previous compounds, and only the Shell team are allowed to run it this year, and it's certainly given the Shell team a terrific advantage in the opening rounds of the championship.
The exit to the hairpin, and Mark Scaife, car number 2, finding the inside line there on Peter Brock. They've been having a fascinating day since this race started. See whether or not Brock can pull him back in straight line horsepower. Gee, I tell you what, he's close here. But he's on the brakes naturally.
This is a very nasty left-hander. You have to be parallel with the car going into that corner before you could attempt any kind of a passing maneuver. He didn't quite have the moz on Mark Scaife there, and in fact, Scaife looks as if he's just been waiting to get by Brocky, and now seems to be scooting away at will. He's throwing it around a little bit harshly, but certainly with the testing they've done, they know what they can do to their cars.
Well, he's a little more exuberant perhaps behind the wheel in his younger days than Jimmy Richards. Half distance completed. Race 1 of round 3, the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship, coming to you from Symmons Plains in Tasmania. Hope you're enjoying it across the 7X network.
Look who's sitting in behind Brocky there, the first of the BMWs. We've said it once, we've said it a number of times. There's Wayne Park still in the pits with some sort of major engine problem. That's a great disappointment for the young Queenslander. Drafted into the Peter Jackson team. Ran for them at Bathurst last year. And not having too much of a good run at Symmons Plains today. There we are, back with this battle between Scaife and Brock. Now, Scaife got past him a couple of laps ago, but Brock has really let him go. He seems to be hanging on reasonably well. The Commodores are struggling around here. Oh, look at that massive brake lock up there.
Oh, and he's gone. It must have a puncture.
Now he's in the soft stuff. He's got the foot into it to try and get a bit of traction. He might get out.
Yeah, I think he'll get out okay. It's fairly dry down there, as you can see. The annual Symmons Plains, the Symmons Plains dust storm. Well, he comes back on, and Neil Crompton gains 3 or 4 spots. That will have angered Peter Brock no end.
Well, you don't see that happen very often. I thought it was a puncture, but obviously not. Just a massive lock-up.
Now, I guess Peter would have a big thumping flat spot on that tyre.
He would, if he wasn't on a circuit here where he felt safe, he wouldn't be continuing if we're at Bathurst with that kind of a lock-up. That was a monstrous lock-up. Can't imagine what happened there. A little bit of a malfunction. I'm sure he wouldn't have left his foot on the brake that long.
Well, we saw him do a bit of that. I thought at Emerald Park in the second heat, he was locking them up a little. Not so much at Sandown, where they had a horsepower disadvantage, according to Peter.
And in fairness to the Mobil team, I mean, they look like the cars that Brock and Larry were running last year, but really they're setting up new facilities in Melbourne. They've got a lot of new team personnel, and it really is effectively a new team. So they're struggling for development time and doing their best with the product they have. The Commodores are having trouble here at Symmons Plains because the new rev limit that the cams are set for the engine, 7,500 RPM. To keep the engines off the rev limit, they've had to gear the cars up a bit. That's giving them a slower speed out of these tighter corners. So Brock down into the hairpin. Meanwhile, Wayne Park's still in the pits. Andy Raymond is there.
Yes, exactly right. Just saw Peter Brock's very wild slide into the sand coming round towards the Dunlop Bridge. Reports from the Mobil team is that Brock is drastically running out of brakes, and as you can see behind me, the crew is ready for Peter to come in at any second, so we'll certainly be keeping our eye on the 05 Mobil Commodore.
Oh, right behind Seaton, there's one gone. Bauer's gone sideways.
They must be jumping on the brakes down into the hairpin more than we anticipated. It is a tough corner. You do have to pull up for it. The brakes get a punishment there just behind or in front of the pits rather, but it's a fairly decent run down. And John Bowe can say goodbye to this race now. He can't quite get himself, he doesn't want to upset everybody else coming around. He's being fairly sporting about the manner in which he's trying to extricate himself here, but he's resorted to reversing out of the way. It looks like a lot of oil dripping out of that engine, Michael. I think he can kiss it goodbye. He's just being polite here and getting out of the corner. He's not even trying.
We take Nissan race cam now as Jimmy Richards comes beneath the Dunlop Bridge, chasing Mark Scaife.
Seaton, meanwhile, leads by 5.5 seconds, so Bow, having that mechanical failure there, has taken the heat off the Peter Jackson car once and for all.
Well, that's a very nice gap, and it's the nicest cushion that Glenn Seaton's had in a long time.
There goes Richards down the inside of Gibbs. No, but Gibbs comes back on the inside. Mark's been leaving his braking very late down there, I've noticed, the last couple of laps, but Richards had a very good run out of the corner. Now it's a horsepower race, side by side, door handle to door handle down the back straight. This is the battle for 5th and 6th. Richards has a nose in front, but Gibbs has probably got the best position.
He can stay with him as long as he stays parallel with him, but he had to...
And Jim's trying
discretion.
This and race cam shows us Richards goes a little bit deeper under brakes and leads Gibbs out of the corner, so he moves up to 5th. Gibbs goes one back down to 6th.
There's Tony Longhurst going through. He's running 4th at the moment, and a similar gap back from 1st to 2nd to 3rd to 4th. Mark Scaife runs in 3rd, and of course Glenn Seaton leading it from Dickie Johnson.
This is going to slingshot Tony into the second heat very nicely if he maintains, even if he only maintains 4th position. He'll be on the second row of the grid for the start of the second heat and give him some very nice opportunities.
About 3 laps remain in heat number 1 of round 3, the Shell Australian Touring Car Championships, coming to you from Symmons Plains in Tasmania. Watching it across the 7 network, also through Star Television in Hong Kong and through Screen Sport in the United Kingdom and right throughout Europe. Hope you're enjoying our broadcast. As Glenn Seaton sets off on his last lap, coming down to the hairpin now. This will put a little joy back into the PJ team. They did a bit tough. They had problems. Glenn probably needed a jet push truck to get him off the line at Sandown. He did not have any success there at all, and then of course when he did make his move, Thomas Mazera had a short back and sides onto the grass, and Glenn had to take evasive action, and he went off at the same time. So things are looking a little better for them at Symmons Plains today.
Yeah, we're looking at the end of, well, this is actually the 4th year of the Peter Jackson Sierra team. Glenn went out on his own after he left Nissan at the end of 1988. He struggled, and he's put an awful lot of work into this team. There's a lot of his own money into the team as well.
And deserves success. He's coming down to the last series of turns. This will give them some joy. The Peter Jacksons here of Glenn Seaton comes out, heading down to take the checkered flag. So Seaton takes heat number 1. Dickie Johnson easing up, coming across the line, takes second. Not too far behind him was Mark Scaife, followed by Tony Longhurst. Then Jimmy Richards, Mark Gibbs and Alan Jones. Neil Crompton the next one, and Wayne Park rounding out the finishers. Let's check them out for you on the Shell race score. Gun-Ho Glenn comes up with the money. First time around at Symmons Plains this afternoon. Dickie Johnson finishes in 2nd, Mark Scaife 3rd, Longhurst 4th, and Jimmy Richards in 5th spot. And we'll be back at Symmons Plains for a little Superbike action after the break. And welcome back to Symmons Plains Raceway as the Superbikers line up on the grid now prior to their warm-up lap, ready to do battle in round 2 of the Shell Oil Series, as we welcome Neil Crompton from the cockpit, the flight deck of the Mobile 1 Commodore, to join our 7 team.
Afternoon, Mike, and good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be back up here and standing by to have a look at these guys with the Superbikes, this first heat of the Shell Series. It certainly should prove pretty exciting. Last weekend is any indication. But before we take a look at the Superbike action, let's go down to the pits and Andy Raymond with the winner.
And winner of heat number 1, Glenn Seaton. What a great drive.
Fantastic. I was ecstatic. We had a little bit of bad luck at Sandown, but it's all coming together this weekend. I'm really happy.
There's certainly a bolt for the first corner, isn't it? The quick Sierras up front. But as the race drew on, the Nissans and even the BMWs came of age.
Yeah, that's right. This is where the next race is going to be fairly hard, because the Sierra tyres will suffer now. And that's where the BMs and the Nissans will come through. So it's going to be a fairly tight race the next one.
Andy Raymond with a very happy Glenn Seaton, the winner of round 3, heat 1 of the Touring Car Championship. But it's Superbike time. Matthew Mladen has pole position from Malcolm Campbell on the Honda. From 3-1, James Knight, the Kawasaki. From 4, it's 30, Scotty Doohan. Position 5, 38, Roy Leslie on the Ducati. 6 is number 20, Troy Corsa. From 7, it's 16, Ben Archibald. From 8, it's Grant Hodgson on that near stock Suzuki. From 9, it's 39, Chris Hill. And rounding out the 10, Peter Guest on the Yamaha. 1 second difference between Mladen and Campbell after qualifying. There's Campbell, the field assembling. Tremendous lineup of Superbikes in the starter's hands and racing. Doing a good jump, but Mladen goes very quickly down the inside, number 45, and leads the field as they head down towards turn 1, which incidentally is smeared with oil, but it's Mladen. Look at the gap. Campbell in second place, Knight up to third. Scotty Doohan into fourth place. It's very treacherous up here. All sorts of wide and varied lines. One goes extremely wide, but the good news, the field through cleanly, and Mladen bolts into the distance.
Interested to see Mladen's race time here is 0.8 of a second under the Rob Phillis's lap record in qualifying. He really is the pace man in the Superbike series this year, and he's already opened up, it looks like about a 1.5 to 2 second gap as they come around for the first time. They haven't even completed a lap. Mladen gets the power down the ZXR 750R Kawasaki as they sweep through the field. Field very tightly bunched, and a nice mix there it is. The Kawasaki of Mladen under brakes as he swings onto the main straight.
Matthews on a mission this weekend to get some more points. Had a problem in heat 1 at round 1 last weekend at Sandown. Malcolm Campbell with a reasonable gap over Scotty Doohan, and someone in trouble there, 16. Is that Roy Leslie in the Duke, or is it Archibald?
Ben Archibald.
It's his teammate.
The Ducati has had a nasty hemorrhage.
Oh, someone went right off the end of 1,000 miles an hour.
He vanished from our screens in a split second. You can't see him there, but someone went off very quickly. Scott Doohan, meanwhile, Malcolm Campbell and Matthew Mladen just disappearing off into the distance.
That's interesting because Doohan's gone through, but Campbell comes back on the outside. It's a bit rough out there, the Honda wobbling around.
Battle between the Yamaha and the Honda. Campbell aboard the RC30. Bike is getting fairly old. Superbike terms, and in front of him the OW01 Yamaha. Scott Doohan, who was so quick at Sandown, had a bit of bike trouble yesterday, fuel starvation in his race bike, and now he's riding his spare in the race. Whether it's set up as well as the race bike, we'll find out as he leads Campbell onto the straight for the second lap.
Just about every lap yesterday when he came under the bridge, it was absolutely shuddering the back wheel, out against the guardrail. But Mal Campbell keeping the pressure on as they come down to the hairpin. There's one that hasn't made it on the top end of the circuit.
Incidentally, Matt's got a lead of 2.5 seconds after these first 3 laps. Someone's come unstuck just past the pits. There's Mladen.
Well, Mladen's got a history of doing this at Sandown. He had a 5-second lead after 2 laps, and he also set a new lap record.
And Doohan's getting away from Campbell. So I think there's the answer to your question, Mark.
Oh, someone else has come off on the slow corner approaching the main straight. There's a lot of hay there. Officials trying to kick it off the track before they come round. Yellow flags are out. Scott Doohan approaching that point now.
As we thought, most of the oil, of course, was down at the hairpin, although it's had a liberal coating all day, you say, Neil.
Pretty slippery out there. There was certainly lots of commotion in the touring car race, Mike. The bits and pieces flying everywhere and all sorts of fluids. And it's also extremely windy. You can see the debris. Now, that won't affect the touring cars nearly as much as it'll affect these fellas on the Superbikes. But look at Malcolm there really starting to slither around as he tried to put the power to the ground. James Knight in 4th position. I think Troy Corse is the next man in the distance there. And that little blip on the horizon was Matthew Mladen.
Well, there's a great shot from our Eastern Creek 500 AGP race cam. Of course, the big event out there on Sunday, April 12. And Goddard, Doohan and Wayne Gardner do it for Australia, but some fabulous pictures out of Sandown. And they'll give you an idea of just how much buffeting Scotty Doohan is getting around this circuit, because it seems to be blowing a minor gale at this stage.
And listen to how tentative he is. He tries to put the power on coming out of the corner. These things are enormously powerful for their size and weight. About 140 brake horsepower. They revved them to something like 13,000 revs.
So Leslie's okay.
Yep.
So both the Ducati runners in trouble. Ben Archibald had a problem. Roy Leslie up on his feet, which is tremendous. Back to Foster's 500cc Australian Grand Prix race cam. And listen to this Yamaha scream. This is the fast right-hander down the back straight.
You want to see commitment from a guy involved in racing. You look at these guys on Superbikes. They really give it everything they've got.
This is from this point on, the track is very twisty and fairly slippery as we go back to Mladen. You'll notice that when we go back to race cam later on, they're very ginger with the throttle. They just caress the thing. So Mladen off on his way, just pops a little wheelie out under the Dunlop Bridge, gets the last lap forward and looking pretty cheeky.
3.8 second lead now, Mladen, after such a short distance.
Hasn't he got a fabulous future? He's just so fast. and he's doing a great job for Kawasaki. Aaron Slide, of course, who rode the full series last year, opting to do only a few rounds this year, but ride in the World Superbike Championship. They've drafted Mladen into the squad as team leader.
Half distance in this opening heat of the Superbike series. Mladen leading very comfortably. Kawasaki ZXR 750. Tremendous machine this. Aaron Slide used it so effectively in the Superbike Championship last year. And there's the gap back to Scott Doohan on the Yamaha in second position. Scotty Doohan, older brother, not younger brother of Mick Doohan, the Grand Prix star, 28 years of age, lives in Brisbane, and he was runner-up in the Superbike series last year, so he'll be looking for one better than that this year.
I think he's drifting back into the clutches of James Knight.
And Malcolm Campbell. James Knight, Matthew Mladen's teammate. Drafted into the team as Aaron Slide, headed overseas to contest the World Superbike Championships. There he is, bike number 1.
See them just navigating out around the outside of that oil spill where John Bower came unstuck in the first round of the touring cars.
James Knight tucks in behind Mal Campbell as they head down this incredibly fast back straight, 250 kilometres an hour on the Superbikes. Look at that takes a lot of bravery.
He'll swing to the inside of him here to get the lie to the left-hander. Can't. Then again, Wally Campbell knows his way around this place.
Malcolm was very strong under brakes that time. The Kawasaki would seem to have the legs in a straight line. Can't put it to such good effect here because of the undulations and twists in the course. And you notice there that Malcolm's actually taken the pressure off himself a little bit in that part of the circuit. But watch the Kawasaki after they go beneath this bridge and see whether or not bike number 1 bridges the gap. Doohan, Campbell, Knight. Mladen's disappeared. He's out in the lead.
And Mladen's extending his lead too, 5.1 seconds. Every lap it gets bigger. This guy is really on a roll.
Well, the Kawasaki, in fact, I think lost ground on the straight that time, but we'll see whether he makes it up this back straight.
Quite a suitable deputy for Aaron Slide, this James Knight. 2 times Australian production bike champion. That was the 1000cc machines that did this. And there he is, having a look down the inside of Campbell, certainly keeping him honest. But Mal Campbell, an extremely experienced campaigner on these bikes. He'll have every inch of the road covered. James Knight's going to have to work very hard, as you can see, as the bike squiggles under power coming out of the corner.
He's doing a good job on the Winfield Honda. Mal Campbell. I'll tell you what, young Knight is keeping him fairly honest. Mladen, of course, has just disappeared. He's often gone out to 5 and a bit seconds over the field as Knight gives chase after Campbell, and they're both chasing Scotty Doohan on the Peter Jackson Yamaha.
This time I think James is better positioned than he's been in the last couple of laps.
James Knight spends a fair bit of his time in Malaysia now, getting involved in the Superbike scene over there. He was second in the Malaysian Championship last year as he goes down the inside again, but Campbell holds on.
Or does he?
Better run out of the corner too.
Watch Campbell under brakes though, up the inside. Gosh, boy, that's strong braking performance.
That is going deep under brakes. It could be much more than that. James Knight had the best run out of the corner, pinned him on the main straight, then Campbell very, very heavily under brakes. And he takes the lead as they come back toward the main straight.
They are a sensational sight round Symmons Plains, the Superbikes. Marginally quicker than the Tourers. And they are just so close to the guardrail.
Last lap, Mladen's already gone. Here's the battle for 3rd and 4th. Tremendous battle. James Knight tries it on the brakes again. Very even here. But
he's got to stay away from the oil. Do you notice how he got out of that? He looked up there and thought, well, this is curtains. I've got to get out of this spot.
Campbell, as one look, knows where he is. Try and keep him at bay.
Look at the tremendous acceleration of the Kawasaki out of that slow corner. These things really have an enormous amount of power.
Now watch the gap again and see whether Malcolm can shoot down the inside. Boy, can he brake late.
Hello, we've got a replay of the last lap.
That's staggering.
Does that Honda brake well? And there's the man in second place. Can't do anything about Mladen. Scott Doohan, the Peter Jackson Yamaha. Try as hard as he may, and there is the leader and the winner. Matthew Mladen pulls his traditional wheel stand as he comes across the line to win Heat 1 of Round 2 of the Shell Superbike Series. Behind him, there's Scott Doohan, pulls a wheelie, and Malcolm Campbell.
Oh, he got it back, Campbell, for 3rd.
And James Knight in 4th.
You just don't wobble with Wally here at Symmons Plains. He's got the place down pat. You can't take anything away from Matt Mladen. Boy, is he looking strong for the Shell Oil Superbike Series this year. He's got the wood on them on the fast circuits, no doubt about it. But we saw a fascinating scrap there for the minor placings, and a very good second to Scotty Doohan. on the Peter Jackson Yamaha. So, checking them out for you on our Shell race score, Matt Mladen, the winner of heat number 1 on the Kawasaki. Scotty Doohan on the Peter Jackson Yamaha in second. Mal Campbell, the Winfield Honda, in third. Then James Knight on the Kawasaki in fourth, and rounding out the 5, Troy Corser on the Yamaha. And back at Symmons, just a sec.
Welcome back to Symmons Plains, and the Formula Fords come out now for round 2 of the Motorcraft Formula Ford Driver to Europe series. But before we take a look at the Fords, let's go down to the pit lane with Andy Raymond and Matt Mladen.
And what a victory it was, going to Kawasaki's Matt Mladen. They say you're the boy to beat in the Superbike series. You got out and gave the guys a big beating there.
Yeah, you know, we got everything together. The bike's working really well. Shell lubrication going throughout the bikes makes it very reliable. And I think, you know, we should be right for the next one again.
What's the difference? Matt Mladen's 20 years of age, first year in the Superbikes. I mean, what is the difference between some of the other guys and yourself?
Oh, you know, I don't really know. I go out there, I ride to the best of my ability. I try and ride 110% all the time when I ride. And like I said, the bike's working really well, and I think Kawasaki makes it a lot easier to win on.
You'd better believe it. The Formula Fords are out on the racetrack. Let's take a look at the lineup today for the Motorcraft Driver to Europe series. John Blanchard on pole with 1:00.47. Michael Dutton starts out at position number 2 in the Swift, and from 3 it's Cameron McConville in the Van Diemen. Ron Searle in another Van Diemen starts out at 4, and from 5 it's Steve Ellery. From position number 6, Stephen Richards, the son of Jimmy Richards. From 7, 16, Craig Lowndes. From 8, Gary Croft in the Swift. From 9, Stephen White in another Swift. And 10, tailing them out, is Con Taparis. 10 seconds away from the start now of the Formula 4 Driver to Europe series. Off the line, and John Blanchard gets the run. Michael Dutton going up very quickly on the inside of him. This big field of Formula Fords heads down to the left-hander. And John Blanchard, is he going to make it? A couple of with late lunges here, including Michael Dutton as they go into that tight left-hander. It'll be Blanchard to lead out of Dutton all through that first turn safely and head down towards the sweeper.
Blanchard made a great jump, got away cleanly. The whole field through that tight left-hander at the end of the front straight. Still lots of debris up there.
Richard Dutton having looked down the inside of Blanchard. 2 Swifts leading the contest. And Cameron McConville in the first of the Van Diemen's taps onto the back of this battle. John Blanchard, the man who was pinged for noise infringements at Amaroo, which was quite a controversial matter, put him out of the running in the opening round of the championship, so he's out for a vengeance in Tasmania this weekend.
Well, he won't have to worry about noise here. The only thing he could disturb within a 100-kilometre radius is sheep beneath the Dunlop Bridge, and Blanchard doing a good job keeping Michael Dutton at bay.
First cars covered by less, the first 7 cars I think it was, covered by less than a second in qualifying, so the Formula Fords are very close here at Symmons Plains this weekend.
Stephen Richards had a big lunge down the inside that time in the yellow and blue Van Diemen.
Saw a very close scrap between these guys in a preliminary race this morning. They're very evenly matched. John Blanchard, Richard Dutton in the red Swift SC92 tucks into the draft, pulls out wide.
Well, look at this. It is on for young and old as they go down to the left-hander. Dutton, Michael Dutton, making a huge run here. He's had 3 name changes in 3 laps. They come out going beneath the bridge. Still John Blanchard there. Hauling them in is Dutton. And Richards qualifying well, as Neil had said, and he's right in this. He's coming along quite nicely, Stephen Richards.
He's doing a fabulous job, isn't he? Mark, there's been a scheme announced this week to encourage the teenagers and younger drivers towards bigger things.
Yes, Shell and Auto Action, the motorsport magazine, have combined in an award as they come down hard under brakes. We'll get onto that award a little bit later. No, he's not going to be able to do anything there. Blanchard's got him covered. They've announced an award where the young guys, anyone under 25 years of age who's been competing in the championship no earlier than the beginning of last year, is eligible for an award, and that'll involve the highest point score in that championship. We'll get a test drive with Dick Johnson's Shell team at the end of the year, so that's quite a thing to aim for.
Dutton's up in the right spot this time. He gets up on the left, which puts him on the inside for the next left-hander. Gets the nose up on the inside and does the job. Nice bit of driving.
Conville closes in on Blanchard too. Gee, they're close. Ron Searle there in 4th place, and Stephen Richards in 5th. Good battle between the chassis too, Van Diemen's and Swifts. Swifts looking very strong here. Great new aerodynamic package, a much stiffer chassis. They've been doing a lot of work, and the car is looking very strong. The car's very evenly matched. 110 horsepower, Ford 1600cc engine. 4-speed gearbox. They run on virtually road tyres. But boy, I tell you, the chassis advancements they're making in these cars are terrific.
Well, I don't think Blanchard is finished with the challenge yet. He'll try and position himself on the inside of Dutton, perhaps, at Coach Corner. It's if he can get close enough, riding the draft down here through the right-hand kink. Though that Auto Action Shell program is great to see. We've had two coming together. Oh, we're glad that was at the tail of the field.
Oh, where's he going? Nowhere.
Well, not if you park it there, but anyway, the idea was right. That was Craig Lowndes.
Craig Lowndes, he did so well at Amaroo in the wet.
He did, yeah, that's a bit disappointing for him, but anyway, he's up and running again. The two Swifts looking pretty sharp here at the moment.
What I was going to make about that Dick Johnson auto action competition is giving some of the younger guys an opportunity straight out of some of the more exciting categories of motorsport. It's a policy that Nissan, I know our co-commentator Alan Moffat has certainly pursued with young drivers to bring them on. Greg Hansford, as we've seen, only one of the number, and that's the way these guys are going to get the step up into touring cars, because it is just far too expensive to go out and launch yourself and try and buy a touring car and go racing at the top end, and I'm sure you'd agree with that, Neil.
It takes too long, unfortunately. So they're concentrating on this battle for the lead between John Blanchard, who's chasing Michael Dutton.
Well, he's still there.
And I think that Blanchard's still pretty handily placed here at the moment. He's getting in the draft, and he'll try and look for a run down the inside. Comes up on the inside now. Can he outbrake him? Yes. So comfortably back into the lead. That was very nicely done. And a lead change again. McConville still in third place, and I think Ron Searle and Stephen Richards side by side that time. And Stephen's got through. So Stephen Richards moves to fourth. Ron Searle drops back one spot. So it's two Swifts and then a couple of Van Diemen's.
Cameron McConville there in third place. Here's the paceman of the weekend, though, John Blanchard, the pole man. And Michael Dutton, who was second on the grid, so they've had the pace all weekend.
Here comes Dutton under brakes, thought about it.
Half distance,
and
locks up.
But Blanchard will get into the hairpin in front. And now will cover his tracks as they get out of this turn and work their way down to the sweeper. Keeping in mind he wants to be on the left side of the road, and that's exactly where he's planning on being right now, which opens the gap up a little just on the kink here. He's got to go the long way round and try and stay there, but can't.
These cars are so evenly matched, it really does come down to driver ability and who's braver on the day. Who wants to go deeper under brakes, who's got a better run out of the corners under the long straights, and whoever can take advantage of the aerodynamic effect of tucking in behind the guy in front. But all this ducking and diving has allowed Cameron McConville to move up a bit closer in third place. So we're going to have a triple treat in a moment. Getting a bit sideways as they come through the corner there. You can tell when these guys are really going for it when the cars start to get out of shape. They usually try and drive them as straight as possible.
Great shot there of them coming beneath the Dunlop Bridge, as Michael Dutton brings them down to the hairpin yet again.
Michael Dutton, Van Diemen mounted last year, and I think 1990, I remember that awful accident he had at Amaroo Park when he went over and over in a big crash at the bottom of Dunlop Loop. Well, he's got a nice new Swift chassis this year and showing a lot of form. 27 years of age, an electrical contractor from New South Wales. And he was second in the Australian Grand Prix support race last year in his Van Diemen, as John Blanchard does the same thing as Dutton last lap. He's on the outside, and we're going to have another brave session under brakes, and Dutton's got him covered.
Dutton will win that one, only because he was in the right spot at the right time. Sort of frustrating John Blanchard just a little. He makes one or two runs.
I'll tell you, as a nursery formula, this is not that cheap motor racing. I think about 1982 guys were doing this season for about $10,000 or $15,000. Now to buy a drive for someone like Phoenix Motorsport, it's costing you about $130,000 with a new chassis and engine. So a lot of money involved in this nursery category. While McConville's moved up, made it a three-car train as they brake hard for the 180-degree hairpin at the bottom of the main straight. And when you get these aerodynamic battles going on, you could easily see Cameron McConville win this race if he plays it correctly.
He's losing a little bit of ground as he comes out the hairpin.
That's Contaparis.
His car...
he was quicker off the rough.
Looks like Dutton got a better run out of the corner. Blanchard goes down the inside. It's side by side, and once again the braking duel at the end of the straight. Dutton's won more of these than... No, Blanchard's got him covered. Great move from John Blanchard.
Now, it was good driving to be able to outbrake him and then get round the outside and take ground off him without touching wheels. So Blanchard the aggressor, and I think he's pulled the right move at the right time as they come down to the last corner.
Well, let's see if there's any desperation down the inside on the grass here. It's not close enough. Blanchard keeps his straight. He's got this one in the bag. Michael Dutton can do nothing about it.
Well,
as they take the checker.
That was good. John Blanchard, I would have had my money on Michael Dutton, but John Blanchard getting up in the Palmair Swift. Michael Dutton placing second in that, and Cameron McConville for third. And there's the rest of the field finishing off. Let's check them out for you and confirm on the Shell race score. A good win that to John Blanchard. Good dive in the last couple of corners. Michael Dutton places in second. McConville takes third. Gary Croft takes fourth. And Ron Searle rounds out the five. Back here at Symmons Plains in beautiful Tasmania, we've got the Tooheys Gold Star drivers warming up for their second round of the Tooheys National Series. Interesting series and a good field here. Not a 16-car lineup as we had at Sandown, but there's still a quality lineup. Mark Scaife, pole position, 51.41, and sharing the front row is Tasmanian Paul Stokel. Out of position number 3, Mark Larkham in the Reynard, and from 4.10 it is John Briggs. From 5 it's Stephen Cramp in the Reynard, and starting out of position 6, Chris Hocking in the Hocking 911. From 7.4, Ron Barnacle in the TAFE Rolf. From 8.7, Alan Galloway in another Rolf. From 9 it's 8, John Herman. And starting out of position number 10, Paul Collins in the Liston BF3. About 10 seconds away from the start of round 2 of the Tooheys Gold Star Series, our national open wheel formula from Symmons Plains, Tasmania, off the starting line. And getting away very quickly on the inside was Mark Scaife. Really had to fight Stokel off the line. They're fairly close as they come up to the hairpin for the first time. And they're all trying to drop into the inside. Stokel can't get across there. He's trying desperately to. Scaife will lead them into the turn.
Gee, Cramp down the inside was all locked up and forced Stokel pretty wide. Got all out of shape, so Stokel dropped back a lot there. We've got Mark Larkham up into second place, Stephen Cramp in third place, so the two Reynard 90Ds second and third. John Briggs is fourth in the Dave Moore car, and Mark Scaife is the leader in the SPA. The car designed and purpose-built for Formula Brabham racing, designed by Gary Anderson, the man behind the Jordan Formula 1 team, and built up at Litchfield in England. His car in second place, Mark Larkham, the Reynard, then another Reynard in third place, Stephen Cramp. Cramp did a great job at Sandown and ran in third place there. And look at this battle for the minor placings as Stokel now comes back in the car that was originally designed and built by the Croydon Park TAFE College in Adelaide. Briggs down the inside, the rolled RT21. Oh, Cramp's got the front saw locked up.
Paul Stokel's gone into the back of him and up the escape road. Stephen Cramp, the local man, trying to turn the car around. Deary me.
Ooh, big
trouble. Dust. Look, I think someone else went off into the dust then too.
He's burying himself here.
And there's Stokel back onto the track. 88 still stuck there.
Listen to the gearbox screaming in this thing. It's just, you've got to drop him in gear at slow revs.
Paul Collins in the Liston gets away as well.
There's the race leader, Mark Scaife.
Scaife now leads by 2.8 seconds.
Now, let's have a look at the replay as they go back to the hairpin at the end of the main straight and see what happened a couple of laps earlier. Now, Cramp locks up the front left, then the front right as well. He ploughs on. He can't make the turn. You had Stokel making a fairly brave move, trying to go down the inside. Couldn't do it. Tapped the back of Steve Cramp. Meanwhile, John Briggs on the inside in the yellow car disappears. Stokel off into the boonies, and then Steve managed to get the car. He actually bottomed it out. He couldn't move anywhere because the ride height on these cars is so low that it was belly down on the road. He couldn't get the thing to drive.
I think he could have read that a little better, to tell you the truth. Going into a hairpin like that and seeing anyone in front of you in trouble, you have to start making some arrangements.
Mark Scaife coming into the pits. He's only done 2 or 3 laps, and there's a problem here, so that gives the lead to Mark. No, it's a stop-go penalty. So it'll be interesting to know the technicalities behind that.
Maybe he jumped the start.
But it looks like he's come out in front of Mark Larkham.
Only just. Larkham up on the outside, challenging. Oh, and Larkham to the lead.
This will be a refreshing change for Larkham and the ex-Eric van der Poel Eddie Jordan Formula 3000 car. Converted to Formula Brabham specs and doing very well today. They're lacking on development time with this car, and as Neil said earlier, they had troubles with gearbox at Sandown. Mark Scaife also had troubles with straight line speed, but he hasn't got that problem here today as he ducks down the inside of Larkham.
I think Mark has trimmed a little better aerodynamically in a straight line than Mark Scaife, that is, than Mark Larkham. Larkham had terrible trouble at Sandown, as you'll recall, with gearbox problems. They've got a transverse gearbox in these cars and much cleaner aerodynamically at the back of the car where the diffuser is. This weekend they've been having trouble with front belts on the engine, but I think they've now finally got it all under control in the Mitre 10 entry. This is one of two cars that Sydney businessman Peter Boylan brought into the country from Quirk's Refrigeration, and they've taken the challenge to bring some of these new carbon fibre chassis cars and inject some interest into the class, and I think we've got a lot more to come. Indeed, Mark Scaife is bringing one of the new, or last year model, 91 Lolas in that was run by the Dams Marlborough factory team out of France, driven by Laurent Aiello.
Certainly an interesting technical battle too, because the Spa is an aluminium honeycomb tub car, and the Reynard is one of the new carbon fibre chassis.
Neil, tell us about the tyres on this class. It's a control tyre, I understand.
That's correct. They all use a Dunlop tyre, the same construction and compound, and you mark your chosen new set of tyres for official qualifying, and you must use them for both your sessions of qualification and also for the race. So similar rules to the touring cars, Alan, and that means you've got to be kind to your tyres, and it also keeps costs under control, and it stops people from throwing endless amounts of rubber at their car. But it's good to see that Larkham's finally getting up and having a run in this car now after having just an unbelievable run trying to get the whole thing together in time. In third place we've got John Briggs driving the Dave Moore Rolt RT21, which more recently has been driven by Mark McLaughlin.
Scaife's over the lead up to 2.1 seconds on Larkham, so he's got a fair bit more race speed.
Here's the gap back to John Briggs.
It's quite a substantial gap too. There it is.
Bit of fresh air there, but Briggs is doing very well in this car this weekend. I watched him in qualifying yesterday in support from Tag Heuer watchers, and he was very aggressive, particularly through this part of the course, and driving very hard and enjoying the car. He's finding the setup of this car is more comfortable than the car that he had previously owned.
4 laps. Sorry, Neil, 4 laps to go. John Briggs, a former sports sedan racer, used to run a Monza with some success a few years ago.
You'll recall that this car, in actual fact, was driven by John Smith in the 1990 Australian Drivers' Championship and part of the 89 Championship. Smithy had an all-time shunt in Phillip Island in the car. But Dave Moore, the owner of the car, has done a massive amount of research and development engineering on the tub of this car to get some rigidity into the tub, the chassis, and try and bring it up to the spec of these newer and high-tech cars.
2 laps to go for Mark Scaife as he swings into the hairpin. 25 years of age.
And some aggro at the end of the straight, I think, that time.
Yeah. The other car being lapped there.
That was, I think Steve Cramp was up and running again. He's managed to unbeach the Reynard, and I think Larkham made a bit of a lunge at trying to get through on the inside at the end of that last lap. As I said before, these were sister cars that Peter Boylan brought into the country. This car of Larkham's was run by Eric van der Poel, who's now driving in Formula 1. This was run in the 1990 International Formula 3000 Championship, and it was operated by the GA Motorsport team, and that's owned by Mike Collier. And I had a run against the sister car in England in 1990, and they were very well prepared cars. And Larkham and his team have done a lot of work, and there's the other car there. I think I said at Sandown that was an 89D. I must have had my glasses on backwards because that's one of the newer cars.
Last lap, Mark Scaife on his way to victory in round 2 of the championship. Good performance from Mark Larkham to hold on the second place and get some valuable points as they try and get some time to develop the chassis further. There's the leader, Mark Scaife, 25 years of age.
He makes it look easy, but the Winfield team put a lot of time and effort into preparing this car for him, and if you can't finish, you can't win anything. And I think they've prepared the car to win, and Mark Scaife's pointed it in the right direction here this afternoon.
Yeah, nice, comfortable, controlled, intelligent drive from Scaife. He comes through the final left-hander and gets some valuable points and an all-important victory in round 2 of the TUI's Australian Drivers' Championship for 1992. And that's the gap back to second place, Mark Larkham, and he'll sigh a big sigh of relief that he got the car home and got some points, and he'll prepare himself now for the next round at Winton, and I think be in very competitive shape there. And there's third place, John Briggs in the Rolt RT21. TUI's race score confirms that Mark Scaife is the winner from Mark Larkham. Third place went to John Briggs. Great performance from Chris Hockey to come up there in 4th place, and Paul Stokel recovered to finish 5th in the Eastern Creek car, and we're back after the break.
Back to Symmons Plains Raceway. We're preparing for heat number 2 of the Shell Oils Superbike series. Saw Matt Mladen take the opening heat a little earlier in our telecast today. He's back, qualifying yesterday at 54.16. Out of position number 2, it's Malcolm Campbell on the Winfield Honda. James Knight on the second of the Kawasaki's out of 3. From 4, it's Scotty Doohan on the Peter Jackson Yamaha. From 5, Roy Leslie in the Ducati, who had a fall earlier. Tony Corser on the Yamaha starts out at 6. From 7, it's Ben Archibald on the second of the Ducatis. From 8, Grant Hodson on the Melbourne Suzuki. From 9, Chris Hill on the Winfield Honda. Rounding out the 10, Peter Guest on the new Era Yamaha. So can Matt Mladen put another one together here today at Symmons Plains? Absolutely outstanding in the first heat earlier today. And can Malcolm Campbell perhaps dislodge Scotty Doohan? Not too far off the start. Should be a ripper. An absolute blinding start this time from Mal Campbell, who gets out, but Matt Mladen comes up the inside of him, looking to take over the lead in the first turn, working his way to the inside. Actually, Campbell couldn't have got off the line any quicker there.
There's no doubt about Mladen. He was on the throttle there. You can see the back wheel skipping as he was braking, maximum braking in that first corner. He's cleaned up the Hondas and away he goes in the back straight again. Almost a repeat of Heat 1 as he opens up that big gap on the opening lap down the back straight. There's Mal Campbell in second.
James Knight getting up very smartly. He separated the 2 Winfield Honda riders as they come down to the left-hander at Coca-Cola. Still Mal Campbell back in second, James Knight, then Scotty Doohan, 2 back from there.
Chris Hill made a good start as well. I thought that he was very brave going up the inside, the hairpin on the first lap. Lots of debris there from all the garbage that came down earlier in the day, but he managed to survive, and he's still in the top 5 in battling. But it's Mladen that leads at the end of lap 1. Campbell in second place, then Knight, then Chris Hill, then Corser and Doohan, 2 Yamaha riders side by side, and the full field goes through as we take Eastern Creek Race Cam.
Fabulous shots here into the hairpin.
Notice a bit of chatter from the rear brake as the bike went in there. Absolutely hard on the picks.
And listen to this. 13,800 RPM in this Yamaha OW01. Unbelievable revs.
Taking the inside route on Chris Hill on the second of the Winfield Hondas. Great shots off our Eastern Creek AGP race cam. And there's the other view.
240 kilometres an hour down the back straight, hard on the brakes, back through the gears, and here he is. And just listen to how he's just having to gingerly feed that throttle in. They've got an enormous amount of power as he comes out of the corner. And there's Mladen in first. Mal Campbell, number 4, in second. And James Knight, the Kawasaki teammate, in third.
So Campbell beneath the bridge.
Well, Mladen certainly got his head down, but the other guys are a bit closer than they were at this distance in the first heat. Mal Campbell hard under brakes, back through the gears. James Knight, who shattered him all the way through the first heat, and had a terrific scrap. Campbell eventually beating him to the flag.
Doohan back there in 4th spot.
And there goes James Knight down the inside. Once again, tremendous acceleration from the Kawasaki. But as we saw in the first heat a number of times, Mal Campbell came back very strongly under brakes. There's a guy off at the end of the straight.
Glad he didn't get the portal, though.
No, but Mal wasn't able to get him under brakes that time, so James Knight's figured out the braking sequence at the end of the back straight. So it's a Kawasaki 1-2 as they come back toward the main straight. Mal Campbell in third.
The ZXR 750 is really a quick motorcycle at the moment. The Team Kawasaki boys, headed by Peter Doyle and engines from Wayne Smith, are working very, very well. It's a good combination. They've obviously done their testing, done their homework, and they're getting the most out of these bikes. But gee, you couldn't help but be impressed by the braking performance of the Honda in the first heat earlier in the day.
Well, Kawasaki really do put all their resources into Superbike and Formula 1 racing. They're not interested in running the 500cc Grand Prix. They don't think it relates to their products at all. They put all their money into their production-based bikes. And gee, it really pays off. This ZXR 750, a superior machine. The R designates a special race special to comply with the homologation rules that come under. Here's number 6, the guy who, or number 8 is it, who went up at the end of the straight, trying to bump start the bike.
Who qualified 10th after his run in qualifying yesterday. So Mladen, Knight, Campbell, 1, 2 and 3. Little gap then back to Scott Doohan.
It's quite obvious this kid just loves his racing. He was giving it absolutely everything yesterday in practice and qualifying. There's Doohan going through, then the next group behind him.
Scott Doohan, Peter Jackson Yamaha, the man who was runner-up in the Superbike series last year, won the round at Lakeside.
Now you'll notice he's a little closer this time to Mal Campbell. We should get some great race cam vision when he gets in amongst them here. They head down the back straight through the right-hand kink. Closing on Campbell now. Down to the left-hander at Coca-Cola Corner. As we take the Eastern Creek AGP race cam with a reminder that Goddard, Gardner and Doohan doing it for Australia in the big AGP class there on the 12th of April. Into the left-hander. I can remember the day, Neil, I think one of our first telecasts when we set you up on one of these and asked you to give us a tour de force.
Well, it was just an unbelievable experience, and I've ridden plenty of bikes, but not road racing devices like this. Never been on a superbike that day. It was the 1000cc Yamaha run by Michael Dowson, and I was the all-time girl on the thing. I was pretty slow, but in a straight line it was lovely.
Doohan closing a little on Campbell, but we know how good and how effective the Honda is under brakes at the end of that straight, but he is closer this time. Now Campbell is making no inroads on James Knight. Kawasaki at this stage looking good for a 1-2 out of this second heat today.
Look at the back of the Honda walking round as Campbell applies power, goes through that left-right sequence up onto the straight.
Really was frightening watching these guys coming through here in qualifying. They flat out through the corner, they drift out toward the arm cone, just about touch it, and that's, you couldn't get much closer than that. No. Scott Doohan right up behind Campbell as they come through the 180-degree hairpin and head onto the back straight.
Here we go.
Inside or outside? It'll be the inside.
No shortage of power from the Yamaha. Oh. Ducks inside Campbell, and Campbell's right in the toe, and he'll go outside under brakes very hard. We've seen the RC30's braking capacity, but no, he's not going to do it this time either. The Yamaha picks him up. Scott Doohan up to third. Campbell hangs on to fourth.
He's got closer again.
At this stage, sixth place, I should say. With our race leader, here it is, Matthew Milladin.
Milladin still disappearing with this one. And this is a great scrap, the second, third and fourth.
Matthew's lead now 3.5 seconds over his teammate James Knight, and this great scrap for third and fourth between Doohan. Look at the back of the Yamaha chattering again under brakes, and Campbell's gone off.
Well, he must have been having some sort of brake problem. We saw him cleaning them up under brakes at the end of the back straight. He hasn't been doing it this heat, and there's an indication that it was a brake problem.
I think it's safe to say this is the hardest circuit in Australia on brakes for any racing device. 55-odd second lap for these guys, and 3 big stops on the brakes, so and Campbell rejoins proceedings. The brakes don't get a rest. The problem is they build up an enormous amount of heat twice at the end of these big long straights, and even in this spot here you're having a big lunge at the brakes, and 3 big applications in 55-odd seconds is more than most of them can take, particularly of course with the cars. But Milladin at the moment doing it very well.
Once again,
gap now nearly 4 seconds, and James Knight in second place. No pressure now on Scott Doohan, so he's probably going to be fairly comfortable in his position at the moment. He had a reasonable margin. Malcolm Campbell went off at the end of the main straight on the previous lap. Actually, I think Doohan's getting a little closer to the back of Knight now, so this battle is certainly not over. But look at that gap back to Troy Corser.
Takes a look behind him and sees that Campbell has disappeared, so he's got no pressure on him as they go up the straight again. But James Knight in his sights. Kawasaki's dominating this heat 2 of round 2 of the Shell Superbike series. Campbell dropped back to position 9 after that braking failure at the end of the straight. So he's got a lot of work to do to work back up here. And as we take race cam again, Eastern Creek race cam aboard Doohan's Yamaha as he back through the gears, hard on the brakes as he approaches the main straight. Cranks the bike over.
Last lap. As a quick glance. Look at the way the tops of the forks stress around. I mean, these things are amazing, aren't they? Just fabulous pictures, tremendous stuff from our race cam team.
Matthew Milladin in the lead again, his customary position. 20-year-old kid with an enormous amount of potential, a lot of ability, and as his Kawasaki team manager Peter Doyle says, by far for the amount of experience the guy's had, the best thing to come out of Australia in superbikes.
Interesting, you know, the combination of the superbikes with the touring cars and some of the other support events here today. I think the number of years they've been coming to Symmons Plains, this is the biggest crowd I've ever seen. and a lot of people will be enjoying this fabulous Superbike racing. I think it's credit to the organisers to put the two cards together. So, out of the left-hander for the last time, Mladen pops a little wheelie and victorious in Heat 2, Round 2 of the Shell Oils Superbike Championship. Healthy margin back to James Knight. Third place goes to Scotty Durham.
And that'll be a long way gap. And there he is.
How do they stop this bloke? How do they do it?
I bet they're all scratching their heads and wondering that. He's making it look so easy.
Well, disappointment for him in the first heat last week at Sandown with an engine problem, but he's really stomping his signature all over this. Shell race score confirms that Mladen is the winner from James Knight, his teammate. Third place goes to Scotty Doohan. Fourth, his teammate Troy Corser. And fifth, the first of the Hondas, was Chris Hill. And we're back after the break with more motor racing action.
Welcome back to Symmons Plains. Just a section of the rather huge crowd that turn out today for round 3 of the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship as the cars take off on their warm-up lap. Should be quite an interesting contest, keeping in mind the majority of the drivers out there are still running on the tyres that they competed in on Heat 1 earlier today. Here's the way they'll line up: Glenn Seaton, the Peter Jackson Sierra, and Dick Johnson alongside. Then Mark Scaife in the Winfield Nissan GTR. From 4, Tony Longhurst, keep an eye on him. From 5, it's Jim Richards in the Winfield Nissan 5734. From 6, number 4, Mark Gibbs, the GIO Nissan GTR. From 7, number 20, Alan Jones, the Vincent and Hedges BMW. From 8, it's 7, Neil Crompton, the Mobil 1 Commodore. From 9, Paul Morris in the B&H BMW. And rounding out the 10, car number 86, Stephen Bell in the Starion. Only a few seconds away from the start of the second heat, the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship from Symmons Plains. The 2 Sierras on the front row. Off the start, the 2 Nissans get away beautifully. And it's a full drag as they go to the first turn. The BMW got away, and it's going to be Glenn Seaton on the inside and Dick Johnson the outside. Now Johnson's got to get across and tuck in behind Seaton. Look at Longhurst going right around them, and he'll pay the penalty as far as horsepower is concerned on the exit to that turn. But it'll be Seaton looking for 2 out of 2 as he comes down to the right-hand kink, and he'll leave the field as they start to build up to full-on speed. Seaton opens it up to 2 car lengths over Johnson. Then you've got the little bimmer up on the inside of Mark Scaife. Fascinating this. And of course Neil Crompton in there as well, and Peter Brock starting from the back of the field with a 10-second penalty.
Look at Crompton pushing his way through the pack there. Longhurst, by way of his excellent start in the first heat, starting 4th on the grid, and he's been pushed back in the power race up the back straight for the first time. But there's Crompton up there in 4th position. That's a great start from him.
They come across under the line, 1 lap down, still a lot to go. Glenn Seaton in the 30 car leads from Johnson. Mark Scaife is the next one, Crompton, and then Wayne Park also pulling out of the draft as they come down to the hairpin. And the little bimmer, Alan Moffat, looking pretty good at this stage as he comes up on the inside of Crompton.
And doing nicely there, very nicely. And he'd do a lot more with a few more ponies under the bonnet, but that's not to be for that vehicle. Glenn Seaton got a nice start and a nice protected line into the hairpin. And he's holding the gap to Johnson in just about the same proportion as he did in the first heat. I think he's really feeling comfortable with this race. Johnson not in a really what you'd call pressing position. In fact, he's going to have to start worrying about what that Winfield Nissan's going to do to him in a couple of more laps. Very close indeed. And here we have our man Crompton looking very good in the Mobil 1 Commodore.
Well, coming up on the inside of Dick Johnson is Mark Scaife again. Crompton is the next one through. There's Glenn Seaton getting away in the Peter Jackson Sierra. And now watch the acceleration here, the exit to this turn. Mark Scaife dives in, pulls back on the inside. Now watch the horsepower, 4-wheel drive, no advantage, huh?
No, not much.
But well, watch Johnson now with horsepower.
And hasn't it got some horsepower? Johnson leaves Scaife behind as they head the back straight into the loop for the first time. The Ford not lacking in front. But look at Crompton. This is a great run from Niels on Wheels. Hasn't been happy with the car on the weekend. He wasn't happy with the handling in the first heat. It's his first time at Symmons Plains, and he's really enjoying himself in this second heat, up in 4th place.
And this is good stuff, and there's plenty happening even back behind this group as Mark Scaife works to the outside. He's trying to get a line here on Johnson.
Scaife's getting aggravated now, Michael. You can see he's bound. When you see the car wobbling like that, he's pushing it to the limit. He's really getting frustrated by Dick's position here. taking all the lines he should to protect his line of attack. But here we have the Winfield Nissan coming up on the outside. It's not going to do him a lot of good. Little under brakes. He's taken the dive.
Okay, he'll go through. He picks the inside rear wheel up on the curb on the exit. See what Johnson's got left with a bit of horsepower, and Crompton closes up as well. The GIO Nissan pulling out of the draft, and right behind Crompton is Wayne Park, who is having quite a day here, hell to play, and Colin Bond is coming through the field like a house on fire. Bond is up to 6th place. We'll catch sight of him shortly. There's Park closing as we take the Dunlop race cam, as Dick Johnson trails Mark Scaife at this stage of the race. They're both trailing Glenn Seaton and the Peter Jackson Sierra.
I'll tell you what, Colin Bond will be a man to watch here. He didn't start in the first heat by way of that engine problem. And don't forget, his tyres are going to be 26 laps fresher than everyone else in the field. And the Caltex car has proved it's very quick this weekend. So Bondy will be a real charger. And here he comes moving up on the back of Crompton in these opening laps of the race.
And it's quite obvious that the Winfield strategy has been exactly the same. Save everything, save Saturday, save Sunday morning. Don't get involved in the Peter Jackson dash. And we have Mark Scaife now absolutely blasting away from Dick Johnson, who is having to run at a pace that only he knows best to do with the condition of his tires.
Meanwhile, Crompton is giving it everything. He sneaked off on the outside of Johnson under brakes there. He's got Bond all over his back bumper, and then Wayne Park behind him. So it's a fierce four-car battle here. Crompton struggling with the big 1,300-kilogram Commodore amongst these super lightweight Fords. Seaton now leading by 3 seconds while this scrapping goes on.
This is good stuff.
It's obvious stuff. Dick Johnson's not in this race, not where he'd like to be. He's holding this brigade up now, and looks like a possibility of getting nailed one by one quite seriously here.
He'll get nailed either one by one, or they'll all get him at one hit, because Dick's trying to just hold it off. Crompton closes it up, and look at Bond. He pulls out of the draft, goes the inside, and Wayne Park is there too. Look at this from Colin Bond as he comes floating up on the outside of Crompton. It all gets a bit wobbly.
Crompton right up on the back of Dick, but Crompton's going to be in a good position here out of this corner, because Bond has been snookered by Dick. Oh, he gives him a
out of a
There was plenty of body contact
You
there.
taught him well, Al.
Colin wants to make up for it. Well, that's what you can do when you have the confidence with the tires, and let's be kind to the others. He's got a brand new fresh car here, fresh engine and fresh tires, so he can thrash it around the corners much more confidently. Dick is struggling around on a set that he's already given pretty much a serve of curry in the first heat, but I think Neil's doing extremely well here. We must compliment him.
I get the feeling that Dick may be holding him up, certainly on some sections of the circuit.
Well, I'll tell you what, in reading this one, I think you find that the next maybe 5 or 6 laps, you're going to see Bond make an absolute charge at Mark Scaife. They come off the Dunlop Bridge area. That's Alan Jones going through. There's Johnson. Right behind him, Neil Crompton. Up on the inside comes Wayne Park in the second of the PJ cars. Come on, Dick, he said, get on with it.
Yes. Gives him a serve. There's plenty of glass flying everywhere.
Well,
Johnson's been pushed back 3 positions there, so Crompton can play rough too, and he certainly shows it there.
Well, I don't think that was deliberate. I think that maybe he might have had a little...
He may not have been able to stop that Commodore, although that looked like pretty good aggressive driving to me. I think Dick definitely was off the pace there, and Neil said, look, I want to stay in this race.
Either way, it's certainly entertaining. Here's a couple of young blokes. Wayne Park, the 28-year-old from Queensland, taking on Crompton. These young guys, when they get a chance to drive these 500 horsepower cars, certainly have a lot of fun. They're very aggressive, and they don't mind leaning on each other's panels one little bit. In behind there, the BMW 2 looking very strong in heat 2, as we suspected.
They come up towards the Dunlop Bridge again.
Look at Longhurst hanging onto the back of these guys out of the corner.
He's getting a butte toe out of there. He loses them down through the back sweeper as Park now makes a big run on Crompton.
Yeah, there's
nowhere to go here, Wayne, let me tell you.
There's nothing wrong with the Commodore brakes.
Unless he can turn back inside of him, and the Holden may be able to hold him there just for a second or two.
And look at this gaggle of cars behind them. The 2 Nissans, Dick Johnson and the other Alan Jones BMW locked in behind there. This is a terrific race.
Well, Wayne Park finally by Neil Crompton. A little bit of surge up the back straight through the kink nicely. He'll want to guard this corner to the left. Crompton not really going to challenge him. Nicely controlled through here. Wayne Park pulling it up on the approach to the back of the pits. The mobile Commodore staying in touch, but Tony Longhurst is starting to come into this picture. His tires. Whoa! There's a little power oversteer.
I noticed Wayne going out the back straight last time too, Alan. The car was starting to switch around to the back, and that was under full power and full speed. So I'd say his tyres are starting to head south. Crompton will be able to see that, and he'll certainly keep him honest to try and get those tyres worn down on the back of Park's car.
Well, he's facing the same problem.
Yeah.
Here's a fairly second hand after a fairly torrid opening heat this morning. There's Johnson. Jimmy Richards making one of the few passes he's made today. In the meantime, Glenn Seaton opens it up.
Johnson slipping further and further back through the field. This engine change hasn't done him any good, obviously. Not as competitive as it was this morning, so Dick's struggling.
I'll tell you, one guy who is making up a lot of ground is Colin Bond. We're keeping check on him. And here he is. There's Mark Scaife running in second, and here comes Bondi in the Caltex CXT Sierra. That'll give Mike Brown and all the Caltex boys some heart. Colin campaigns in all the touring car rounds. They had a bit of problem this morning losing a motor after doing so well here over the past couple of days, but boy, he's like jumping Jack Flash. He's coming through the field here and he's just picked Scaife up, and I'd say he's probably picked up 200 or 300 metres in the last 3 laps.
The fundamental change with the Caltex team this year has been that they've discovered this major overheating problem they've had with the engine. That's been playing mucking around with the engine management system. They finally cured the overheating problem, and all of a sudden Bondi's got a very competitive race car in his hands. As you can see, here he goes outside Scaife as they head under brakes. The GTR is very strong in the braking department. Bond going deeper and deeper. He's done it easily.
The big thing now, Alan, is that Bondi could actually be the series spoiler for today. Seaton really, after losing points at Sandown last weekend where he had a terrible time, Bondi hasn't run the first heat, and if he gets Seaton, he's going to cost Seaton some points here today, and Seaton really did need those 30 series points at the end of the afternoon.
Yeah, and John Bowes kissed goodbye his fine run last weekend at Sandown, so certainly the points will gel up.
Well, John Bowes currently third in the championship chase before they came to Symmons Plains, and Seaton is 6th. So Glenn will be clutching at every point he can get, and as Mike said, if Bond cleans him up, that's going to push him a long way down through the title chase. So it's going to be a real ding-dong battle when he gets up here. Meanwhile, back in the picture there, you can see Park still struggling along, and I think Longhurst just took Crompton. So Neil struggled on with those tyres as best he could, but I'd say they'll be on the way. Looking pretty tired anyway at this stage, but he's fighting back.
Yeah, he's having a great run, and so too is young Wayne Park. I know we've put a couple of wraps on him earlier today. Let's check them out for you on the Shell race score. Glenn Seaton leads in the Peter Jackson Sierra from Colin Bond and the Caltex machine. Third is Mark Scaife in the Winfield Nissan, followed by Wayne Park, and Neil Crompton rounds out the top 5 back at Symmons in just a moment. With race 2 of round 3, the Shell Australian Touring Car Championship. Back in the pack, Neil Crompton, car number 5, and Tony Longhurst continue their fascinating scrap here.
This is the battle for 5th and 6th. Crompton still holds on to 5th place, but Longhurst giving him plenty coming out of the loop.
He'll be trying to stay right on the bumper bar of that Commodore now and not doing a bad job when you consider flashing his lights, a little bit unhappy about something.
It's interesting.
Considers Neil to be doing something unsporting. I don't think that's probably justified at this stage of the game. When you're door handle to door handle, you can flash your lights at somebody, but Tony's not that close yet. He's got to be right on the bumper bar of that Commodore before he can possibly pull out of the slingshot and nail him under brakes.
Here's Richards as we take the Nissan race cam, moving up here on the right behind Dick Johnson. Johnson wobbling around just a little bit, but look at the acceleration as he goes beneath the Dunlop Bridge, and now down the short chute to the hairpin turn. And we've been inside with Jim a couple of times today. Motor really doesn't seem to be doing a lot of revving.
They're not screaming it at
No.
all, Mike. I don't know
this.
how they've geared it, but up through the gears very, very quickly, almost moseying.
Dick's in position 7, Scaife's in 8th, and coming up behind them is Alan Jones in the second of the BMWs in 9th. So Dick's still hanging on there. And Crompton is also hanging on in front of him for Longhurst. Longhurst is going to give him plenty around the back of this circuit. I was saying earlier today that the BMW is as fast as anyone around this back section of the track through the tight, twisty turns. And Longhurst, Crompton has his work cut out for him, keeping Longhurst out.
And he's taking a chance here. He's taking a chance here, getting sideways. On the inside. Couldn't do it.
Neil's doing the right thing. He looks like he's keeping that car as straight as possible to try and conserve those tyres. He's got to squeeze every ounce of life out of them that he can and keep Longhurst at bay as well. So it should be an absorbing dice.
Well, he's in some good company here, and here comes Longhurst down the inside.
See Neil just covering his ground there.
Well, it's every
Doing
man for
exactly
himself.
what he
It's
should be doing.
Perfectly legitimate.
Yeah, no, he's doing exactly what he should be. Tony picked up a little bit on the inside there. Now he's going to try and drag him down And if he can stay parallel with him along the straights, he'll be lined up on the left lane for the left-hander at the end of the straight. But no, can't hold off the Mobile Commodore in a straight line.
Well, here he comes under brakes. This will be a mad last-minute charge at the turn. Not enough space to do it in, so Crompton still continues to lead that BMW. They're backing up behind these two with probably 2 or 3 car lengths between them. Bond still chasing after the race leader, Glenn Seaton. We're keeping an eye on that for you. It's still out to about 4 or 5 car lengths at the moment. Coming up underneath the Dunlop Bridge, and here comes Jim Richards. Working to the outside, but Dick's already there, and Dick will stay to the inside as they go up to the left-hander and actually gets away from Jim. Now the brakes as Longhurst, I think the moment of truth.
And went just a little bit wide there to let Crompton know that he had taken charge of that corner. He just cost Crompton a little bit of time there, couldn't quite get on. He's having another go at him, but that was a very nice strategic move by Tony Longhurst.
Meanwhile,
just ever so subtle.
It was. A bit further back there, behind that battle, is Johnson and Richards. Johnson's doing a remarkable job to hold Richards off up till now. But Jim sneaks through. Dick's struggling along after that engine change. His tyres will probably be a bit tired too, I'd say.
Actually, the gap between Glenn Seaton and Colin Bond fairly constant as Johnson finds himself in the wars here with Mark Gibbs and Bob Forbes' GIO Nissan, and Alan Jones making life unbearable for the pair of them. Here's Jonesy sitting in the draft. He hasn't got enough grunt to be able to pull out and try and pass them. Dick's trying to protect the inside lane. Forbes goes the outside. Now, if Alan Jones is up smartly, he might get the inside of the pair of them here. But he'll pay the penalty with prize money. They're 3 wide as they come out of that turn. You couldn't complain about the quality of racing here today at Symmons Plains. It has been absolutely first class.
Jones taps into the draft behind Johnson. Johnson's car may not be it's running too strongly, but it's certainly quicker down the straight than the BMW, so it's a good place to be.
Here comes Alan Jones. He's going to use his brakes to best avail.
Yes, he's got him
by Johnson. And nicely now the GIO car will be a little bit wider. By that I mean give him a little bit more wind resistance, and Alan Jones rather will have an opportunity to get a better slipstream off that GIO car.
So now Crompton's got Jim Richards on his back as they come down toward the hairpin another time. Longhurst has opened a little gap on the Commodore. Crompton doing a good job in the mobile car this year. I think he was about 2/10 off Brock in qualifying at Amaroo, and certainly at Sandown he was matching Brock's pace, so he's doing a good job with the Brock BMW mobile team.
I think you'll find now on this lap, Mark, that Jim's going to be close enough to be in that slipstream and going to give Neil something to think about at the end of the straight.
Meanwhile, his teammate Peter Brock is running second last in the race, so he's struggling in the other car.
A big close-up under brakes by Jim Richards. Able to keep his momentum wound up there. He's in a position now where the Commodore's actually holding him up in that little short straight on the approach to the back of the pits. But Crompton not giving way. He'll place his car exactly where he wants to. There's only one way to do it around that left-hander in front of the pits. But Jim Richards very close now. He may have another stab under brakes going into the hairpin. He's certainly right on that Commodore. I do believe there was a slight little sporting gesture there from Neil to say, I can't do it, grab me on the inside, and that's true professionalism. The fellow did his job for many, many laps, held him off to the best of his abilities, but knew on that particular occasion his Commodore wasn't going to pull up. He just gave a quiet nod to Jim, and Richards took advantage of it. Glenn Seaton will be praying to see a 2+ something. He'll know the countdown, how many laps he's got, mental arithmetic, and how much he can perhaps punish those Bridgestones on the last few laps. He'll know what he's done to them, and bear in mind he started yesterday afternoon on this set of tires. He had to qualify, did a good job, had equal time with Colin Bond to take third on the grid, ran the dash this morning.
3 laps to go in the race. Alan, you've been in this situation many times. What's going through your mind when you're just trying to defend your lead and the guy behind you so close?
Well, at this stage of the game, I used to push the rearview mirror up so I couldn't see him, and literally only kept in my rhythm and stayed on that gap and let the arithmetic work for itself. It's terribly nervy when you can see the other fellow. And what will be running through Glenn's mind at the moment is, just give me another, no mistake, just like that golfer, if we can relate to a golf shot. up on, nice chip, take it easy, not get rattled.
Here's the challenge for 7th position. Crompton running at 7th. Mark Gibbs has caught him up in the GIO GTR.
Well, he's got him for the last couple of laps, but there's nothing he can do about it. He gets fairly close at the end of the sweeper. He sits in Crompton's draft as they work the right-hand kink. But the Holden gets away just a tad through that corner. And the Holden, if anything, Peter Brock may have been having problems with his brakes, but Crompton's done fairly well today. Been fairly economical, I believe, in the 7 car. May have chosen the right pads, and maybe Peter went the wrong way.
Well, certainly brake pad selection is in the driver's hands, and it is a crucial aspect. Most of these fellows running on Ferodo pads, but there are a variety of compounds, just like the tires, and this is what practice is all about, and the driver is responsible for getting the package that will do the job. Anybody can look good for a couple of laps in practice, but the objective is the 2 heats and coming out on top at the end of the day.
Now, Mark Gibbs tries to set it up to slingshot back on the inside, the exit to that turn, but can't do anything about that. So this midfield dice between the Holden and, of course, the GIO Nissan GTR continues. It'll go all the way to the flag, and I think Glenn Seaton probably will, because he's coming in to take the 1 lap to go signal now. He'll go beneath the Dunlop Bridge. The gap down to probably about 2 seconds now with Colin Bond, and a similar gap back to Mark Scaife in the Nissan running in 3rd. 4th, I would think, Wayne Park in the number 35 Peter Jackson Nissan. And next on the queue would be Jim Richards in the 1 car, Tony Longhurst and Neil Crompton, with Bob Forbes still trying to tackle him. They're on their last lap, heading down to the sweeper. There's the gap, 1st, 2nd and 3rd. A fairly close finish coming up to today's 2nd race at round 3 of the Shell Australian Championship. Glenn Seaton opens the gap up just a little bit more as he comes down to Coca-Cola turn. Dabs it in here nicely. He knows he has the race won at this stage. And he's driven a great 2 races here today at Symmons Plains. The dust has been on the circuit up at that top end all day. We're coming down to the final series of heats, and the Peter Jackson Ford Sierra of Glenn Seaton comes up with a double at round 3 today at Symmons Plains, Tasmania. He wins from Colin Bonds, Caltech Sierra, and 3rd goes to Mark Scaife in the Nissan. 4th going to Park, and 5th to Jimmy Richards. Let's check them out for you on the race score. Seaton the winner. Colin Bond finishes in 2nd spot. Great drive that. 3rd, Mark Scaife in the Winfield Nissan. 4th, Wayne Park in the 2nd of the PJ Sierras. And rounding out the 5, Jimmy Richards. And we'll talk to the winners when we return.
Well, the Sierra is dominant at Sandown and dominant again at Symmons Plains. Dick Johnson in 3rd position. Dick, well done, but gee, had a few engine worries today, didn't you?
Oh, we had a few engine problems, and also, you know, the tyres really never came back on after that first heat, so we were in trouble right from the start. And, you know, everything passed me, I suppose, everything except a kidney stone.
Well done, better luck for the next round.
Thanks.
Mark Scaife in 2nd place. Well done, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
The Nissans once again struggling against the Sierras. These regulations have really knocked you guys around, haven't they?
Oh, they have, but, you know, the 2nd race is a good race, and this sort of circuit, we knew that the cars wouldn't be quite competitive enough there, and, you know, I think it's a good result for us, really.
Yeah, well done, Scaife, great. In 1st position today, Glenn Seaton. Well done, Glenn. Great to see you back in form. The Peter Jackson car running extraordinarily well.
Yeah, it's actually running very well. I was very surprised at how our form was today. I'm very, very happy. But once we start to get to the circuits at the end of the rounds, we're going to find it fairly hard in the tight circuits. So these are the circuits that suited us.
Well done, Glenn. Tom Smith from the Shell Company to make the presentation.
Long overdue win, mate. Congratulations.
Thank you, Tom.
On behalf of Shell.
Thank you very much.
A lot of good action here at Symmons Plains today, and we expect some more at Winton.
So, progressive points after 3 rounds. Scaife the leader on 84, Richards on 72, Seaton on 66 now, and Dick Johnson 57. Seaton said they'll do it tough on the short tracks. I think Winton perhaps.
Yes, certainly the GTR and the BMWs around that tight circuit will be dynamite, Mike.
Well, if we have a race at Winton as good as the 2 heats today, well, there'll be no complaining from us. We sincerely hope that you've enjoyed all the action today from Symmons Plains. We look forward to your company on April 4 when we go motor racing at Winton Raceway. Goodbye until then.
Today's motor racing telecast has been proudly brought to you by Shell.